Okay, we're going to be looking today at a post called Appreciation and the pink roses, the appreciation tie-in there. One of the meanings of pink roses is to show appreciation. This is a very simple post. We have the model has been watercolored or painted, whichever way you want to look at that. And that is something currently, to the best of my knowledge, you can't do in Canva. So we are going to look at an external free program for painting the model. But everything else is Canva, and a very simple but effective little technique here that can be used in many different ways. Looking forward to it. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is nothing but Canva tutorial videos. Pretty early stages. I think it's only been up there about a week. So please subscribe, leave comments if you'd like to see anything in particular in Canva explained. I would be happy to do that. Okay, thank you, and on with the show. The original post, which you can see here, Pink Roses for Appreciation, this used a program called Jixpix to produce this model watercolor here. Jixpix is not a free program. It's $50 or $60, I guess, depending on where in the world you are. It does an excellent job, and $50-$60 if you're doing a lot of watercolor, which kind of is cyclical for me. Like, there are times when I'm doing a lot, times when I'm not doing any. It's not a lot of money for what this program can do. It's very powerful, but appreciating for some, this is just a learning experience, and you may not want to be spending the money. I have redone the post, called it Pretty Lady, just for differential here, with a free program for the watercoloring the model, which is Photo Sketcher. Now, the reason we're doing this, of course, is because there is no native way I know of to produce this kind of painting effect in Canva. I'm sure there will be eventually, but right now there isn't. Again, Photo Sketcher is a free program. If you just put that into Google and download it, you will see this is a very powerful free program, a little bit different than Jixpix in its approach. There could be an argument to say it's a little more authentic in terms of painting, but we won't get into that with this video. So you need to download a copy of that. I'm going to show you just the essential parts. This is not a Photo Sketcher video tutorial. This is about Canva. However, you're going to need to know how to do some kind of watercolor adjustment to get this overall effect. Okay, so moving along, and without further ado, second thing you need to become familiar with is Unsplash. There are many models within Canva. I use them a lot from Canva, but in this particular case I went to a web site called Unsplash, which is where we got this model from. So let me show you where she lives. Okay, welcome to Unsplash. Unsplash has a very liberal set of parameters for using their materials. There are paid and unpaid photos here, but this is probably one of the best known and one of the best variety of free images on the web. Again, there are a few restrictions, but I do suggest that you become familiar with the Unsplash license. And one of the things you definitely cannot do is redistribute the picture in its original state, and that's why I'm showing you where the website is, so you can download and manipulate yourself, which I believe is well within their terms of service. But again, it's worth reading their license. From here, I'm just going to search beautiful girl. Not really original, but highly effective for what I wanted. And these are the premium ones I told you about on the top. That's a nice one right here. But there's lots of free ones here. I'm sure that you can see all of these pictures being used in some form in your posts. Well worth taking a look at Unsplash. I mean, look at these. These are beautiful models and low cost, like this one. Should have used that one. Now, the one, of course, that we used is this one right here. Simply click on it to enlarge it. You can go all the way. I have kind of a funny download system on my system, but you should be able to download no problem. Mine actually opens up on a separate screen. and we're going to just save this model to some place we can find it. Okay, so finally in Canva, we're going to take a look at this now and put it together live. Again, these tutorials are live, so you're going to get a lot of ums and ahs. I apologize, but here we go. So let's just create a new file first. I believe I originally worked with the Facebook post, but I don't think in this particular case that's such a big deal. Now you do want to upload the image that you just downloaded from Unsplash. These ones that I did earlier, but just to walk through this very quickly, you need to know where your media is at, where your photo is at. Just upload her again, and all we're going to do at this point is we're going to take out the background and then save it as a transparent PNG. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this process. I'm going to expand her a little bit. She doesn't really have to be at this stage, but just to lend some continuity. Everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with editing the image. Now, I do not use external background removers. I find the one in Canva more than sufficient. However, if you do not have the Pro version, I believe this may not be a feature in your Canva. But there are lots of, if you just put background remover, there are lots of things on the web that do an adequate job. So there she is. We're going to save her now as a transparent PNG. I very often boost this up initially in size, but I'm not going to do that in this particular case, and you'll see why in a moment when we actually import this into the photo sketcher. When we paint the drawing, the size of the file does make a considerable difference of the performance of the painting. So you need to have an idea of what size you're going to use. 940 by 788 is fine for me on this, and it won't be too slow when we start this rendering as a watercolor, because again, that is a taxing process on your computer, and you'll see what I mean by that in a second. So I've got my, I'm going to entitle her Pretty Lady 2 because I've already been working with this. So save it someplace you can find it and save. Now, at this point, you should have already downloaded Photo Sketcher. The photo is spelled F-O-T-O. Sketcher, Photo Sketcher. I believe there may be a later version of this right now too. I might be using an older one. Quite possible. Okay, so you get this very drab looking screen when it comes up. This would be your original photo. This would be your adjusted one. Don't be put off by what is a pretty modest user interface. This is a very powerful piece of software. I am quite surprised that it's available for free, and I think you'll agree with me once you see this thing is very powerful for a free software. So we're going to go to the Pretty Lady PNG. I'm going to load her up. She's on the left and the right hand side, and then you get these various things you can choose from: pencil, sketch effects, pen and ink, painting effects, stylized effects. If you scroll over, they'll give you an idea of what these individual items are going to do. This isn't a video about Photo Sketcher. Please go ahead and play with this yourself. What we're going to be looking at right now, what I used is this number 9 watercolor, and I'm going to show you how we can touch these things up a little too. So don't be off-put if it's not exactly what you want right out of the gate. This is not anything you have to worry about, and I'm going to show you why. So if we press the draw now, it's going to take this picture on the left and it's going to watercolor it on the right. And like I say, don't worry too much if it's not exactly what you want, although this is actually fairly close to what I do want, because what you can do is you can come into here and you can adjust some of these items and brush them out. Now I'm not going to do a lot of this, but just to give you an idea, I'm going to brush some of this. I'm going to maybe take down the size of the paintbrush down a little, and maybe brush out on what they call here the manual brush. And what the manual brush is actually doing, like Photoshop, is actually giving you the facility to just mask and unmask these areas. Now it's a little bit heavy there. I might bring that down some, and you can just brush out. So for instance, this model has beautiful eyes, so I may want to bring it down a little bit here, so on and so forth. But just play with that one. You can essentially get some pretty darn good paintings with this software if you're willing to give these sliders, especially the paintbrush size and the edge intensity. If you play with these along with the brush sizes and brush tone or contrast, you can get some pretty impressive results. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to actually save this one out now. Save is right here, and we're going to call this Pretty Lady 2 Photo Sketcher. Is already done. I'm going to adjust this to PNG. I don't know if you really have to do that. I have just found, since I've been working with Canva, that the PNG seems to work the best. That's something you can choose on your own. So what we're going to do with that is then bring it into Canva, same way as we bring everything in, upload the media, and right there, Photo Sketcher, Pretty Lady Photo Sketcher. So it's important that you give these things identifiable titles, especially if you're working with the same thing, same photo over and over. You need to know what's going on. So we're going to take her out for a second and drop in the painted one. Now, the rest of it from here is very, very easy. I mean, you've introduced yourself to a new software package. You've introduced yourself, some of you I'm sure, to a new website for your images. Now the rest of it is very easy. Now in terms of your background image, you're going to find that it's actually not really that important what you use. I find that once you have your model painted up lightly, it's pretty hard to go wrong. And just to give an example, we're going to pick two radically different backgrounds here. If we put this one in and set it as the background, and then bring in our model, as you can see that this is like really different than what we had originally. We do have to take the background out again now that we painted it up. That's not a problem, easy to do. Again, if you don't have Canva Pro, lots of websites will remove the background. Now, as you can see, this kind of thing is so easy to make look good. This is a completely different background than we used originally, and it still looks good in here. Now, just a quick word on what you can do if you leave Photo Sketcher open. You can manually paint in. So for instance, this hair here is not that interesting, and up here too is a little bit. You can adjust those things as I was showing to you before by painting them in with a little less contrast or a little more contrast, whatever you want to do, and you can adjust these things. So if you leave this model loaded in your Photo Sketcher while you're adjusting your work, and then just come back out from the parts you weren't too thrilled with, save it again and go through the upload process, this is something you can do on a pretty good a workflow basis. And this thing just paints it in. Very simple to use. You'll see as I paint it in here, it's going darker. We could probably make it even darker than that if we wanted. And this is something you just have a bit of trial and error to get used to it. But you can actually touch this again for a free program. You can actually touch this up very well. We're not going to use this background. I just wanted to give you an idea of how flexible these things are. They're very easy to look good. We're just going to delete this one and bring in something a little closer to what we actually used in tonality, to what we actually used on the initial post. So this one is pretty close. And there we go, bingo. Now from here, you're rocking, because this is very simple now. From your elements panel, just anything you want to add in watercolor, just put watercolor as the first word. Then we use roses, of course, and you're going to get a variety of things you can use to dress this lady up. And I believe this is the one that I used, and I think I used it fairly indiscriminately. Just adjusted the scale a little bit. Again, Control D on Windows will give you a duplicate of this. Spin it around or invert it. I guess we'd have to flip it. And as you can see, this comes together really quite easily, and you can adjust it accordingly around the lady. From here, you can either bring in fresh items, or just use the same thing over. Again, Control D here is going to duplicate the thing, and just going to do it again. Control D. I'm going to flip it. Again, this video is very live. I apologize. You're going to see all the mistakes and everything. Maybe that's good. Now, from there you can add. You can either just keep flipping and reusing this in different ways, or you can add another rose. If you add another one in and it is not exactly the same hue, you can always come over to the edit image and play with the saturation, etc., and get it a little closer. And or you can use one of the filters. Of course, there's many filters here. We could probably get a little bit closer by using the photogenics. At this point, this is being a little bit nitpicky, because I guarantee you, no matter how you dress this up, it's going to look fine, just because these techniques are kind of foolproof in terms of their prettiness. And of course, we started off with a great model in the first place, just to give you an idea here. Now you've got a whole raft of things you can go at as well. You're not stuck to this, using the same flowers I did. Now we're going to use standard text over here. What I mean by standard text is there's some pre-made stuff. Once you put this in, there's no reason you can't stick with just a straight text. Let's call this one Ready To, and you can just use it on the background, of course, because this stands out. If you decide to use one of the colors from the image itself to make this thing, to pick it up a little, I'll show you what I mean. You might want to use a daub. Now, daubs are great. Again, you just put in watercolor, and then daub, D-A-U-B, and you're going to get a bunch of just straight punches. I use these a lot here in different things, but let's just stick with this one for now. Put it behind, and again, this one can be adjusted for color if you want. Now, if you're lucky enough to have the paid version on 2, there is a color picker, which makes this process even easier to deal with. If we take the print here and use the color picker, what I like about this is we can pick any one of these colors out of the painting and put it in. I think on the original one I used the blue, which did seem to pick up nicely. I think I used the blue from her jacket. Yeah, and that gives it a nice pickup. So a very live tutorial there. I'm sure you can see that if you spend a little time with the painted picture from the photo painter, and spend a bit more time arranging your flowers. Maybe you want to angle some of this stuff and bring it down in size, etc. I'm sure you can see how easy it is to make these things quite pretty, quite quickly. Very easy technique, workflow, and quite a nice result. Okay, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to that YouTube channel. I'm hoping to have a lot more videos on there over the coming months. all pertaining to Canva, and perhaps how you can integrate also free photo programs to capitalize on the great composition and tremendous asset flow that is within Canva natively. All right, bye for now.